The EU just moved its biggest AI deadline, and then made the rules tougher. On the 24th of July 2026, the digital Omnibus on AI was published in the EU's official journal. 3 days later, it entered into force. It rewrites the AI Act's implementation calendar. Standalone high-risk AI systems, originally due for compliance by August 2026, now have until December 2027. AI systems embedded in products, medical devices, vehicles, industrial machinery are pushed further still to August 2028. Read in isolation, this looks like a retreat. Industry lobbied hard for more time and got it. But the Omnibus does something else. It introduces new prohibited practices that were not in the original act. AI-generated child sexual abuse material is now explicitly banned. So is AI used to generate non-consensual, intimate imagery. And all providers of AI systems that produce synthetic content must now mark those outputs in a machine-readable format. Let's take the marking obligation seriously. From the 2nd of August 2026, providers must mark AI-generated synthetic audio, image, video and text in a machine-readable format. Deployers face additional duties. Deepfakes and AI-generated content affecting the public interest must be disclosed to audiences. This is the EU's most direct countermeasure against deepfake proliferation to date. Machine-readable marking means that platforms, fact-checkers and downstream systems can detect synthetic content automatically. In theory, but in practice, the effectiveness depends entirely on enforcement, compliance, and whether the marking standards are robust enough to resist tampering. The new prohibitions on CSAM generation and non-consensual intimate imagery address harm categories that existing criminal law has struggled to cover when the content is AI-generated rather than directly produced. The Omnibus makes these technology-specific prohibitions, closing loopholes, rather than relying on general-purpose criminal statutes. And this enforcement posture was reinforced in the same period. Italy's Data Protection Authority fined Character Technologies on the 3rd of July 2026 for violations relating to the protection of minors, age verification, and data protection impact assessments. EU authorities are not waiting for the full AI Act timeline to act. The Commission's draft guidelines for high-risk AI providers are now open for stakeholder consultation. The risk is familiar. These consultations have historically been dominated by industry. Civil society organizations, consumer groups, and affected communities are structurally disadvantaged. If the guidelines are shaped primarily by the entities they regulate, the democratic deficit that critics identified in the AI Act itself will be reproduced in its implementation. On the 7th of July, the European Data Protection Board adopted guidelines on web scraping in the context of generative AI, with consultation open until the 30th of October. Data protection authorities are signaling clearly. Mass data collection for AI training is not a settled practice. These guidelines will shape whether and how generative AI providers can scrape publicly available data, a question sitting at the intersection of copyright, privacy, and competition law. The digital omnibus is not a weakening of the AI Act. It is a recalibration. More time for industry on high-risk compliance, less tolerance for the most serious harms, and a new transparency infrastructure that, if enforced, could fundamentally change how synthetic content moves through digital ecosystems. The next 16 months will determine whether this is genuine strategy or simply a delay with better optics. If this matters to you, the full article is on Substack, the links are in the description, and if you found this useful, subscribe. This is exactly the kind of story Cyber Ethos exists to tell.